really think that, like me, people have been sitting and watching the news and seeing so many things and feeling helpless. There are so many bad things happening in the world and very little we can do about it. We can support our charities, we can give loans through kiva.org and things like that, but it just doesn't feel like enough. And so people see this, and people see people gathering in groups like this and say, I can be a part of that. And it's being a part of something that could potentially make huge changes for the world that is so beautiful.
Do you think a lot of people are disappointed in Obama?
Yes, I do. I do. I really think that, like I said, he promised that they end the war, get out, like that's going to happen. And he promised this and that with healthcare, and he's done some with healthcare, but not much, not as much as he promised, not as much as the people expected. And I saw an interview with him, and he goes on and on about how complicated it is and how hard it is to get things through Congress. But that just shows there's something wrong with the system. It shouldn't happen. They should represent the people, and the people in America desperately need better health care. I grew up terrified of getting sick, and no child should go through that.
I work in mental health, and I see a level of disadvantage, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, that is scaring me, frankly. It's scaring me. We've got systems in place to help the most disadvantaged people, and they're floundering. They're floundering under a rising tide. And nobody really knows what to do about it. We're just sticking band-aids over people's distress and fear. The funding is all about crisis and reacting to situations instead of being a little bit more proactive about it. Looking at the reasons why people are distressed, looking at the reasons why people are disadvantaged. And I hope that by being there, maybe we're going to shed some light onto why those reasons are, and draw people's attention to the fact that there's massive inequality in this country, despite what the media might tell you. It seems to be working really well for a very few number of people, which is basically what the capitalist system is all about, isn't it? It's not about sharing the wealth, it's about accumulating wealth for a very few. And it seems that the rest are suffering because of this. I don't like it. It's imploding. I mean, look at what happened with global economics. Banks have been bailed out, but who are going to bail out these people? The banks? I don't think so.
The greed, the social situation, jobs around the world, unemployment, people making money up at the top, the 1%, who sit at the top and dictate to us what we should do in our lives and what's good for us. And they decide for us, when we're the ones who are putting in the hard yards. I mean, a lot of the world is going through to the corporates decide, people abide.
The slogan of this movement, the 99% versus the 1%, recognises that social inequality is the political issue of our time. Behind this movement stands the sentiments of millions of ordinary people. People who just want a decent job, decent wages, the right to public health care, education, childcare, other basic public facilities. But this has all been torn away. These demands are now revolutionary demands. I think this movement is, in its essence, anti-capitalist, and it can only go forward on the basis of making this implicit tendency conscious and direct. After all, how do we fight Wall Street? How do we fight finance capital? There is no reformist solution to this question. We saw in Australia only last year Kevin Rudd make a very modest proposal, a modest increase on the tax paid by the mining companies, and there was immediately a campaign waged and he was ousted. This merely underscores the fraud of parliamentary democracy, the fact that big business and finance capital ultimately rule. We are confronted with a very basic and fundamental question: for or against the Gillard government and all its political accomplices. This can only go forward on the basis of a struggle against the Labor government, which is the political representative of finance capital and big business. At the same time, there needs to be a conscious political break with all of its apologists and supporters, including the Greens and the trade unions. What is needed is an internationalist and socialist perspective on a revolutionary basis.